Welcome to the Women of Advent podcast. We are here today on day 11, and today we're focusing on the hidden witnesses who are at the margins of the story of Jesus' birth. So the way that we're going to do that and how we're going to focus ourselves together today is asking a question about how we honor the stories of those on the margins, who often go unnoticed both in the church and in our communities.
I think this is a space where social media can be a really beautiful tool. You can find some voices that are different from your own and look at the work they're doing, and it's easy to like and subscribe and share as a way to elevate a voice that might be different than your own. I think it's really easy for people in a situation to say, well, it's not happening to me, so it must not be that big of a deal. And it's so important to remind yourself by listening to a voice that might be experiencing, a different life than you, what's happening. And it doesn't matter how quiet the voice might be, that voice still matters and deserves a place at the table.
Yeah, the voices in today's reading, Shipra and Pua, we don't really name our children after them. They're not elevated as much, and yet I'm glad that we're getting to lift them up a little bit today. The story in Exodus, because it lifts up that a king can give an order, but if the people who are actually responsible for living into and living out that order don't think that it's a valid or just order, they're not going to do it. They won't comply, and then the order is useless. And so if something's not happening, those in power say that it's important, but those who actually are the hands and feet on the ground, these beautiful midwives, and we don't often tell their story.
Yeah. And we get to connect to that grace that is present and learn from the stories that are told. There's research, psychological research, that says that when we diversify our social media feeds, when we listen to stories from people who are different than us, it changes the way our brains work. It shifts a pattern of thinking, and we respond differently to those voices, and we respond differently to the world around us, based on being open to listen to new sources.
It wasn't something that I really exposed myself to until becoming a mom of two girls of color, that I suddenly was like, oh, I've collected a lot of books over the years, and yet my books aren't reflecting my family now, and our dolls aren't reflecting my family now. And so in engaging some adoptee podcasts that I listened to, they said, try and have 30 to 50% of your feeds and books, and just 30 to 50% is a good target audience of trying to, or a good target rather, of trying to diversify what you're reading, listening to, who you're hearing, so that you can really step into those other narratives.
Yeah. My preaching professor, Shauna Hannon, she had this practice of asking us to engage with resources that were 3 circles out. So the idea is that you engage with someone who has 3 identifying features that are different than you. So when you're preparing for a sermon, that you're listening to voices that aren't all coming from exactly the same place. So as a woman, I might look for someone who has a different perspective. As an American, I might look for someone who lives in a different country. I might look for someone whose first language isn't English. I might look for a person with other things that I don't necessarily share, because they're going to read the scripture in a different way than I will. And that will not only enhance the engagement for me, but I get to share those resources with other people and help draw them in to the conversation we're having around the text.
I really love that. So our rhythm for today is to identify someone whose contributions maybe go unnoticed and offer them some words of gratitude today.
And if you feel comfortable, put a comment in the feed below. We'd love to hear what you have to say about it.